Yeah, I'm ready.
Right. I think I'm ready to go. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You're listening to the Making Geeks podcast for makers, families, and geeks. Happy post-Halloween November and according to Donovan, Christmas season to all of you and all of you out there.
It is upon us.
Yes. Where was it? Was it last week they were talking about how the year's gone by fast?
Yeah, and slow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a weird conundrums, and I don't know if that's an age thing or just life, society, family. I don't know, but either way, we're getting closer to the end of another calendar year.
Yep.
It's about this time of the year where I start telling my seniors that, hey, just think, 5 months from now, we get to kick you out of here into the real world. And they go, oh, that's messed up. Well, yeah, but it's a reality. So I like putting the pressure on them and teasing them about that. Nice. They don't like it, but I think it's fun. That's all that matters.
It's a good perspective.
So how are you guys doing?
Good. Pretty good. I've been
doing some interesting stuff this week, Wes.
Yeah. So I brought the 3D scanner over to Nicole and Turi's house, which are our friends from When Geeks Craft, friends of the podcast. And it was a lot of fun. It was the first kind of like time, like I had used it maybe once or twice before that, just lightly, just trying to figure out how it all connects together and installing the software on my computer. And by the end of that evening, we got pretty good with it. And even since then, I've gotten better. There's definitely some nuance to using the 3D scanner. There's a couple different modes that allow for different techniques and to take advantage or to sort of compensate for things that it has trouble with in other modes, like shiny surfaces or things that are really dark or somewhat reflective can give it
or butts apparently
issues. Or yeah. And hair. So this particular model is more for like an industrial reverse engineering of a object that you don't have a model for, like that you need to make models of or make accessories for. And it's accurate to like sub-millimeter precision. So pretty decent. It's not particularly great at all parts of the human body, as we've learned, especially darker hair, even like a beard. Anything dark won't like show up properly. And so we had a friend, Ben, over, and we were scanning his face, and it looked like he had a giant hole where his beard would go. It was just like a hole in the mesh, so you could like see into his throat and stuff. And hair, it doesn't do a great job either. So there are models that are particularly suited and have different software to do that. But it's still for the face and other things that we're scanning. It does a great job. So I've been finding like random giant toys around the house and stuff from the pantry, like cereal boxes and other colorful things. And it's been a fun distraction. I need to get back to actual work.
Have you?
So besides, go.
Have you experimented with a Mixamo yet?
No.
Mixamo is an Adobe product. It's basically a website where you can take that 3D model and apply it to a preset human model. So that Hulk that you sculpted, you could animate it within like 5 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to try that out. Yeah.
So what else? So besides your Game Boy, is there other like, have you started like 3D modeling like the Virtual Boy and all of your collection?
I'm trying to save most of my collection to actually record me scanning it, like with a camera, for the video content that I'll make. I have done a Game Boy. I've done a Super Nintendo was the first thing I tried, and it was when I knew how to use it the least. So since then, I've actually gotten better at it, and I'd like to tackle it again. So it has like two modes. It has a laser scan mode and a mode that uses infrared light and like a blue flashing light. And the blue light mode is it takes pictures of your texture and automatically applies it to the model as it's generating the model. And it's good for like something like a video game asset where you want the texture as part of the end result. The more accurate one is the laser scanning, but you have to have these little stickers that come with it that you either put on the surface that your object is sitting on, or you apply them to the surface of the model or the object itself, and they help the laser kind of system like track where it is in real space.
That's almost old school.
It's almost old school, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you could actually put a bunch of stickers, like let's say 100 stickers on my car, and scan the entire car with that. And it's interesting. You can do stuff from a scale of like something like an apple to a car, and even larger with this thing. And you can do multiple scans of different chunks, and then load in the different chunks in the software, and it recognizes like commonalities between them and like aligns them, so you can have like one giant mesh that can like mix together. Pretty neat so far, and I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface with it. So who knows what can result from this crazy thing.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, I say with the Mr. Burns evil fingers pose. Excellent.
It's kind of sad because after like playing with it for long enough, you're gonna get really good at it, and then you're gonna have to send it back.
I know. We need to get together before I need to send it back so we can do some crazy stuff.
Yeah. And so I've been really really busy. This is going to be a very busy month for me in terms of making stuff, because holidays are coming up, and my sister-in-law is getting married, and we're apparently the wedding planners for that. And so that's a new endeavor that my wife and I are taking on, trying to plan a wedding. But God of War Ragnarok comes out next week, and so my son and I have been working on the God of War cabinet that we designed, and that Brett McAfee from Skull and Spade did all of the metal work and the filigree and all that kind of stuff for it. And so we're building the cabinet and trying to get it done, and the video for it put out before, not before, but like on the 9th when God of War Ragnarok comes out, because that's going to be the highest peak of people searching for God of War content, because I am desperate to try and get out of this pinhole that the algorithm has put me in of Ninjago content, because I found out that the algorithm bases itself on the audience and what it thinks the audience wants to watch. And the problem is my core audience is all people that watch my Ninjago stuff. So when I put out a video, they push it out to those people. And if it's not Ninjago, they don't watch it. And so YouTube is like, oh, I guess people don't want to watch this video, so they don't push it out to anything else. And so I'm like, I need to do something so different, and like that's part of like something that's hyped at that moment, so I can capitalize on like keywords and all that other kind of stuff. So I am hoping that this cabinet is gonna break me out of that. But it's been pretty fun. I'm working with Cherry, which I've never worked before, done anything with Cherry before, and it's not a terrible wood. I thought it was going to be kind of a pain to work with, but it's been great so far. I haven't got to the point where I'm carving all of the Nordic designs and everything into it yet, but so far it's been a joy to work with. I definitely will work with Cherry again, as long as I can afford it.
Very cool. I have some interesting things going on this week. I finished my video for the last laser review, but they asked me to hold it till next Wednesday because they were having some website problems before I start promoting the video, along with the affiliate stuff. So I'll be posting that next Wednesday. In the meantime, I am working on another video since I have a sponsor for tumblers. So this will be basically first time I'm doing like a material source sponsor. But along with that, I have a new rotary engraver from Xtool. Now, this one they didn't give me. I actually bought this one with my own money, or rather with my own affiliate link, so I was able to get a little bit on the back end. So I'll be doing that. And I have something else that kind of came up today. And Wes kind of predicted this last week. I got another laser in the mail. I made the deal, I think, 3 days ago, and it got here already. It's the Orture Laser Master 3. It's one of the newer lasers that's out that I said I would take if they offered it. And just by chance, I got an email, and they sent it to me. It got here really quick, so I'm looking forward to putting that together. And, yeah.
No more lasers guy, got another laser.
On my Instagram story, I even put, I think I need an intervention, because I took a picture of the thing today. And there's something else coming up too, but I'll save it for the geeking out about for later in the show that I caught wind of today. So we'll see if there's at least 3 more lasers in my future, possibly.
Wow.
But one of them might be a fiber. One of them might be a fiber finally. I'm waiting for that.
Nice.
I'm waiting for that trifecta of fiber, CO2, and diode. That's like the holy trinity of lasers. So that's what I got going on.
Kind of like that one machine where you can like switch out the head between a diode and a CNC and a plotter. Is that
the snap maker? I think it is.
That, yeah, something like that. Snap tool, snap whatever.
Snap something. Yeah, I guess. But I'll talk about that machine later on in the geeking out. So tonight we're talking about. We haven't done like a geeking out in a little while, have we?
I don't think so.
I think
we did a little bit on She-Hulk maybe, but not too much.
Yeah. I think we actually said that we should, probably mix it up a little bit. But I think it's time to talk about this show, which is Andor on Disney Plus. And we probably would have talked about it earlier, but I've been kind of a little bit behind the curve in watching the episodes. So I'm eager to talk with you guys about it because I have some questions about the show, and I'm not sure I'm picking up what they're putting down, or maybe I'm just not the market for the show. I don't know. So I'm wondering if one of you maybe want to start off the conversation a little bit about what you think about Andor.
Donovan?
I guess we could introduce it. So.
You want me to start this off?
Yeah, let's start us off.
Well, yeah, I mean, so just in case anybody in the audience has not seen it or doesn't really know what it's about, maybe do like a brief introduction of what the show is and like the main players maybe.
Yeah, so Andor is a show that follows the happenings of Cassian Andor, who people will know from the movie Rogue One. He was one of the characters in Rogue One. That we all know what happened to him in the end of Rogue One, so there's no mystery there. But this is like the prequel of Rogue One that in a timeline falls 5 years before Rogue One.
Yes.
And what the series so far is following Cassian Andor, the people associated with him in the early stages of what will eventually become the rebellion. Mon Mothma is another major character. There's been some various scenes with other famous characters from the Star Wars franchise, and it introduces us to a couple of new characters within the Empire that apparently are going to play a very huge role in the developing of this story. There's going to be 13 episodes. They're currently on episode 7, so we're halfway through the series right now. A lot has happened, but then again, not a lot has happened, just because the way that they are presenting the show and unfolding the story and everything like that.
Yeah, it's certainly a slower burn than any other Star Wars content that they've put out, and they definitely hold you the least in this series, and it seems like they do the least amount of like in your face Easter eggs and having to explain the origin of every single little thing like in Solo. So for me, it's been it's been fun, kind of a breath of fresh air, and I hope they take this as an example of ways to continue storytelling for not just Star Wars, but maybe even Marvel as well. Like take a more serious kind of approach for some things when it's appropriate. It definitely has a couple moments that are kind of funny, but definitely they don't have like a slapsticky kind of character in it. They have a droid, but he's not slapstick.
He's kind of the comic relief.
No, he's not even in the majority of the episodes. He's kind of quirky. He's different. He's got different technology. He's got like a little personality to him, but not an overbearing one that's like a distraction. And you actually use him as like a storytelling mechanic where you can tell like things that happen like through the progression of time based on how he looks, which is kind of interesting, and how he operates. Not a whole lot, but in a couple of episodes they do a prequel, a jump back to when Andor was young, and they show the same bot. And he later on in the majority of the show he's kind of glitchy, but then when you first see him, he's not glitchy, he's not banged up, and his paint job's like pristine and things. So little things like that they kind of drop, but they don't really draw much attention to. That even after like repeated viewings, you get more and more kind of stuff to glean out of it. And the what's the gentleman's name? The older
Skarsgård.
Skarsgård, yeah,
is the actor's name. I don't remember what his name is in the show.
Yeah,
He his first couple episodes are like probably my favorite, and I wish really they would do more with him than they have in the entire series so far. I'm sure he's going to be coming back and doing a lot
Cyrus more. Is what the Empire calls him, right?
I think so, because he does like an undercover kind of thing. But it's neat when the character went from like his non-imperial, like his rebel side, and he switched kind of characters to the flamboyant, almost like aristocrat.
His physical appearance changes.
His physical appearance and his mannerisms. He's like looking in the mirror and he's like locking in, and it's like a 5-second little sequence. But
I thought that was interesting.
But just in that little sequence of him putting rings on and looking in the mirror, and his face, facial expressions, hand motions like change, and his posture changed, and it told you so much about that character. Like, whoa, this guy's got like way more depth to him. There's a lot more going on, and that was before you even knew what he was up to. It was pretty neat. So I'm definitely excited about where they're going. And there's some parts in the later episodes I would say that I'm not sure how to feel about certain characters. I know this is intentional, but they kind of make you not like a character, and then they show it from a different angle. You're like, well, maybe I should like this character. You don't know what. It's part of the intrigue and the suspense of it. And I won't say much more about that, but it's pretty fun.
Okay, just so that we're all on the same page. His name is Luthen.
Luthen, that's right. I keep wanting to say Luther and Luther. Luthen, got it.
Luthen. Yeah. Sean, should we get to it? Should we get to your? You definitely seem to have like questions and/or concerns about this.
And/or concerns.
And/or concerns.
Yeah. You remember in episode 1 when everybody complained how political episode 1 was? This is all political. It's interesting how they just embraced it. I'm not sure why this show exists, and I'm not sure why they felt it was necessary to tell this story. And I don't mean that to sound like I'm not enjoying it, because I'm still not sure if I'm enjoying it yet. It seems weird, and I don't know if there's a purpose in crowding out this storyline even more, or they're just desperate for keeping the franchise name on people's minds. I'm not sure why it exists. I'm hoping that when this is said and done, there will be a greater purpose of why this story needed to be told, because we've already had Rogue One, which I thought was very good for what it was, for not really being a intentional established storyline. I mean, this is all pre-Disney Plus anyways. Excuse me. We also had the train wreck, the magnetic train wreck that is Solo, that also dealt with the start of the rebellion, or one of the early stages of the rebellion, specifically how some of it was funded, or at least a significant portion of it was funded. And then Andor seems to be dealing with a similar purpose in getting things started with the rebellion as well. I think it's doing it a lot better than Solo did, in a lot of ways, but I'm still not sure what I'm watching and why I'm watching it. and it's, it looks fantastic. It reminds me of almost a British drama without the British drama in a way. I mean, just the look of it. There's a lot of ambient environment, and you can't really tell like a lot of single directional light source. I mean, it changes because based on location and stuff. It's not consistent, but I mean, a large part of it is taking place in almost like a gray type of environment. And
a lot of the story is along the gray. It's about
I mean, it's all thematic.
Yeah.
It's all thematic. It makes sense. I mean, cinematically, I think that it's great. And I've heard a lot of people say that it doesn't feel like Star Wars, or it's so different. And I'm not sure I quite like that, because I like the mysticism in Star Wars. And I understand that there's other stories to be told, and I do want to see those stories as well. But this is very much for adults. I mean, Andor is a murderer, plain and simple.
It's an espionage.
Sure,
series.
I get that, but in a series that has pitched itself as being almost for more ages,
Mm-hmm.
the harshness of this feels a little bit out of place for me. And
I think that's one of the reasons why I like it so much.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And I understand adults like that, but I have issues with it when it seems, I don't know, something doesn't feel right or sit right with me.
Is it the same sort of feeling that you got watching The Last Jedi?
No.
No.
This is completely different, because I inherently think this is good. I think that it is good, but the moment I see Star Wars attached to it, I think there's a certain expectation of something bigger and grander and mythical, and the fact that I'm not feeling that feels like there's a part missing. And I know that might change as the series goes on, but this is what they've established, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it.
I think it's been interesting.
So go.
Good. I was gonna say I was thinking it's interesting to see like the perspectives of the stories from like more like boots on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and that's why I like it too, because I think it's being done well.
And I would say as like a accompanying piece to Rogue One, I would say it fits in pretty well. If Rogue One didn't exist, it would be even more striking how different it is. But it seems, at least to fit into the puzzle of Rogue One, because that one, has a little bit of mysticism with like the monk and Jedi Temple-ish stuff, and the tacked on Vader thing at the end. But without those moments, like it's pretty different too. I do like how they've really put more intelligence and less like buffoonery into the Empire. Like by a lot. Like even in like the newer trilogy, like General Hux, he's like an idiot. And like the way he might not be an idiot tactically speaking, but they treat him like an idiot with, all the different characters messing with them and like and just different things. And he's not that much more seemingly intelligent than a stormtrooper who can't land a shot. But these guys have like complexity, and like when they talk about like the ISB like committee that are like kind of behind the scenes, like controlling all these different aspects of the Empire. I thought that was really interesting. And then you have just the level of control that they try to exert over situations and people, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then even within that, like you have different sections of people that are more or less into the Empire's like way of doing things, and I like how they're like leaning into different characters from that aspect.
Like Cyril.
Yeah, Cyril.
So I think that's kind of why it feels weird though too, is because in Wes, you pointed out, the image of the Empire has been almost like, kind of like a, fumbling type of group at times.
Yeah.
Can't seem to get things right. But then by contrast, you have this group. I don't understand how they mix them, because this group seems so much more sophisticated than what we've seen in 9 movies in some ways. And I think that mismatch makes it feel a little bit weird. I think it almost might be like a semantic thing, the fact that they're calling it Star Wars. I almost wonder if they need a different approach. Like, you had 7 Harry Potter movies, but now here's the Wizarding World. Like, maybe this is the galactic, I don't know, universe type thing. As opposed to Jedi's and Skywalker saga, here is the galactic universe. The story of the galactic universe.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
So, like,
dang it. The problem is that when you start talking, you don't look at the camera. You look off and then you start talking. So you don't.
Is that the cue
That's happened
that we need?
the 2 times. Yeah, the 2 times it's happened. You start your train of thought looking up into the stars, which is appropriate. Go ahead.
I lost my train of thought. No, I didn't lose my train of thought. Sean, one of the reasons why I asked if you got the same feeling from this that you did from Last Jedi, because one of the things that The Last Jedi did is that it kind of turned the table on the whole good guy, bad guy trope that was inherent in Star Wars from the beginning.
I have no issue with that.
Because in Star Wars, it's always been like Rebels good, like Empire bad, root for the good guys, like these are bad guys.
That was never my problem with Last Jedi.
Okay.
That was never my problem with The Last Jedi.
But I mean, that was one of the elements of The Last Jedi, is you had this character come in and say, yeah, the Empire is bad, but the rebels are buying the same, technology that the Empire is doing to do the same amount of. You didn't care about that?
No, I'm an adult.
Like one of the,
I know the difference. I know the reality of situations.
And the fact that this is treating what, like Wes had said, a previously like almost comically buffoon organization in a real light. Like this, you could place this in like the real world and almost all of it would be completely believable, just because of the level of like devotion some people have to the Empire and like how that translates into the real world, and like politics and geopolitical politics, and like how you have to be two-faced, talking to this group of people when in the background, like you're doing this kind of thing. And just the level of detail that they're putting into the show is something that like I am latching onto like crazy, because it's unlike any Star Wars that I've seen before. And for me, who's been like, I love Star Wars. I mean, we eat Star Wars for breakfast in this house. But I mean, they are treating it with such intelligence, kind of like Wes was saying, that I am loving what they're doing with this show. One of the things that I love, like it is a minute, small detail that I absolutely love. In the Star Wars universe, they don't talk about people like eating. What do people eat? And we get scenes of like people having cereal and milk and conversations and like the life of living in the Star Wars universe, where before, I mean, Cyril is the biggest, face of that, because we get to see someone from the Empire who in all previous iterations of Star Wars anything is just like faceless horde of bad guys that get shot down or blown up, or like you don't know anything about them. And here you get to see like the people living a life outside of the Empire, and how that life outside of the Empire affects like their work inside of the Empire, that kind of thing. I love that because it adds character to what like I said, what previously was just this faceless mass. So like the spy movie with Michael Myers, yeah, baby.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers. So at the very end of Austin Powers, the first one, do you guys remember like the end credit scene where it like goes into the life of the guy that like got run over by the plow, and like you see his family and his wife and the grieving process after like their husband got run over by like a a plow at work, that kind of thing. And I loved that because I'm like, nobody ever thinks about that. Nobody ever thinks about the people outside of like the faceless bad guys. And
Right.
in this show, they're like giving a life to those people in a way that's just, I mean, you hate them, but you kind of don't hate them. But at the same time, like they are doing a phenomenal job making you hate the Empire and everything that they do. They're not bad guys for the sake of being bad guys. They are like smart, methodical people that are obsessed with control and order and like doing whatever it takes to maintain authority and all that other kind of stuff in a way that's, like Wes said, is a lot more intelligent than just your standard Star Wars bad guy, good guy.
Do you think it strays too far away from what Star Wars, and this is kind of maybe an over-opinionated stance, but don't you think it strays too far away from what Star Wars was really intended to be?
Maybe. I mean, I don't feel like this is a commercial for toys at all. Why is Boba Fett riding Rancor? Because it's going to be a toy that's going to sell at Christmas. Like, I don't get that. I don't get that feeling with this show. Like,
yeah, and I think that's part of what's wrong with it. Is
really?
It's not fun.
It's not fun. Yeah, I can see that.
It's interesting. It's a compelling story, but it's not Star Wars.
I guess Rogue One was fun.
It still at least had that same sense of adventure, in my mind. And out of Rogue One, Cassian was my least favorite character.
On that, I would agree.
Which is why I was completely floored when they said Andor was going to have his own show. I'm like, what? I just threw something. But...
Yeah, I was not on board when they announced this, or like even up to the first trailer. I'm like, because kind of like what you're saying, Sean. I didn't see a point for this. I didn't see like why. Just
the only thing, and you guys are a couple episodes ahead of me, and I hear people talking about the brutalness of the Empire, which, unless I've missed something, which I think I've missed a lot in the show, to be honest, and I'll talk about that too. I haven't quite entirely seen it yet, other than, I mean, I've seen a little bit in like the vindictiveness of trying to hunt down this one person, and the motivation and focus in trying to find this person that killed a couple of the officers. I haven't seen the brutalness yet, so I'm assuming that it's in episode 6 and or 7 where that's kind of showing its head, and that I kind of like, just because I think that in more recent iterations in Star Wars, that once they introduced like this gray area of not knowing who's really good or bad, I kind of miss the temperament in the 80s of like evil is evil type thing. And if they're helping to establish that, then I'm a little bit more on board. It's just
they
nice
do
having...
make them like genuinely evil.
Well, good. I mean, good. I mean, story-wise, I kind of miss that distinction because in a lot of modern film, it's danced around so much. But I remember growing up, it was a really nice position to be able to say good, bad, and it's a clear distinction of those two things. So if they're building the development of that one group, then I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I also think it's part of the fact that like the series is growing, like it's growing up. Because before it was easy to look at like, oh, good. Like, these guys are good, these guys are bad. We root for the good guys, like completely annihilating the bad guys. Where if you take a moment to think about it, it's like the floor scrubbers and the electricians and the engineers and the plumbers on the Death Star that like weren't bad people, that had nothing to do like with all of the horrible stuff that you see the Empire doing, but were just, you know, literally in the military doing their job, like get completely annihilated, just like guilt by association. I'm like, how many millions of people did Luke Skywalker kill
Wes,
in the
go
course
ahead.
of this? Like, you can't think about it too much, because then, like you were saying, those lines blur, and like this show definitely like pulls apart at that preconception of these are good guys, these are bad guys, and blurring those lines.
Wes, go for it.
Just stole my point. Yeah,
Who did?
you did.
You.
Before I
Oh, I'm
went-
sorry.
I was gonna say like like you were referring to the Death Star, the second one. Like a construction job of that magnitude would have required like a hell of a lot more manpower than the Imperial Army had to offer, right? So like you're saying, I bet there were like tons of independent contractors working on the thing, like plumbers, aluminum siders, roofers. You know, in order to get it built quickly and quietly, they'd hire anybody really to do the job. I mean, do you think the average stormtrooper knows how to install a toilet main? All they know is killing, you know, in white uniforms. All those innocent contractors, they were hired to do a job. They were killed. They were casualties of a war they had nothing to do with. I mean, all right, look, like you're a roofer, and you have some juicy government contract that comes along your way. You know, you have a wife, kids,
I love
a
this.
2-story in suburbia. It's like a government contract. It means all sorts of benefits. All of a sudden, these left-wing militants blast you with lasers and wipe out everyone within a 3-mile radius. You didn't ask for that. You have no personal politics. You're just trying to scrape out a living.
Okay, so other than an interesting aside for consideration, does the plumber on the poop deck really need his own story?
Yeah.
If it's an
I
interesting
don't-
story.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
So like there's a lot more development on like Mon Mothma that you'll get in episode 6 and episode 7. I love like that story thread that they're following. It is intriguing seeing how she handles like trying to head a rebellion while at the same time being a political force on like within the empire on Coruscant, and all of the dangling and juggling and all that kind of stuff that she has to go through to pull off what she's trying to pull off, I think is fascinating. And the actress playing Mon Mothma is fantastic. And the cinematography, oh my gosh, like I can't say enough how well all of these shots are established, especially when it comes to Mon Mothma, because her shots and her scenes and her bits that she has are so beautifully set. And one thing that like it's part of cinematography, every scene of her, she is caged in, whether it's a door frame, whether it's a window, whether it's like the paneling inside of her thing. It's a visual way to develop her character without the use of like arbitrary exposition, which is really common in, you know, the Disney verse. And they are doing such an amazing way of visually telling a story about these characters beyond any dialogue that's going in. So as you watch, like I said, especially Mon Mothma, as you watch every scene with her, she is physically like framed out. She is caged in every single shot in that show. And it is beautiful. It is fantastic. Just chef's kiss.
I wouldn't argue against the cinematography and the fact that it's shot really beautifully with that soft focus and the clear distinction between basically the different, you know, social classes in a sense. I mean, it's really clear the intention, and it works really well. But you said something before that I'm not sure I agree with. You talked about the story growing up, and I don't think it needed to, and in some ways I don't think it should. If you want that much of a political drama, then you should just watch House of Cards, because that's eventually what they're going to turn it into. if you're if you're looking at somebody's political rise to power, and I don't doubt that it is an intriguing story that is interesting to be told, but unless they're willing to take it all the way through until, when did we last see Mon Mothma? Do we see her in Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi?
Oh yeah.
I don't even remember. I remember New Hope, and I think I remember Return of the Jedi for like the last campaign, but I think that's it. So are they going to continue that on back through the original trilogy? Are we going to end up right back where we started?
Mon Mothma, I think, has been in like every iteration of Star Wars, hasn't she?
Wes, are you muted?
If you're saying something, Wes, you're...
Yes, she was in everything.
Yeah.
I don't remember her in 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah. Yeah, she was in 7, 8, and 9, because I was like, is that the same actress? Either they hired the same actress, or it's somebody that looks ridiculously like the actress from the 7. I gotta look this up now. Is it it the same actress?
So I mean, it was just I didn't remember, but even then, are they going to continue telling the story all the way back through, avoiding all the Jedi stuff, and then now just look at all the politics of every single one? I don't know where they're going with it.
I'm hoping this isn't like the seed of like spin-off after spin-off after spin-off like Mandalorian was. But I'm hoping that this is just like a standalone thing that is just good. Like it's a story told from beginning to end, and it's done.
I'm pretty sure they already said they're going to do a season 2.
What? Mm-hmm. Of Andor?
Yeah.
With how successful it is and the reviews that it's getting, I don't see there's any way in which they actually stop this now, because it's like a kid that finds a new toy that's really cool. They're going to kind of keep playing with it until it breaks, and they'll break it at some point, because they already have another story that they have to run into.
Well, some stuff they cut out from this one, I guess they retooled the story, and they were supposed to include K2SO in the series, but they rewrote it at the last minute, and Alan Tudyk, or whatever his name is, said that he was excited for it, and the initial reports were he was supposed to be in it.
So he'll be in season 2 then.
Yeah. I mean, if you got 5 years of content to cover, and this one only takes, there's only like 40 days or something that's occurred so far that I'm.
Because the both of them are like this buddy pair, this weird.
You gotta wonder like where he came from. Like there's
good
some
cops
backstory there.
Bad cop, sarcastic cop.
Yeah, the one interesting thing I thought about in Rogue One is like I thought it was interesting when they highlighted Saul Guerrero, how like I always assumed the rebels. Like I never watched a lot of the cartoon stuff, so maybe I'm sure this was covered a lot in there, but I never had the patience to go through all those episodes. I always just envisioned the rebels as being one united force, and didn't realize there were splinter groups and things like that. So when Rogue One came around, and I realized, there's like a more extremist version of the rebels that even the rebels think are too rebel-y. And then
Which all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but now this one is even going like a step before that, and there's not just 2, there's, several little splinter groups that have yet to coalesce into one movement, and so it's kind of interesting to see how that is all coming together.
I know the original Star Wars series, at least 4, 5, and 6, was meant to be somewhat of an allegory of World War II, even vaguely, but it feels like they're really hitting heavy with allegory, intentional or unintentionally here, with everything political going on right now, and I'm not sure if anything's that close to home. I loved Star Wars for the fantasy, and there's a big fantasy aspect missing now. It's still military, it's still people trying to oppose the military, and they just have fancier vehicles. I don't see a whole lot of other differences.
Well, I mean, the clone troopers and stormtroopers have assassinated most of the mystical characters out of the universe at this point, so at least there's a canonical reason where you don't see them running around.
Yeah, but I mean the fantasy aspect isn't just the Jedi's; it's also creatures and other things, which there's a huge lack of here. Well, actually, that's not true. There were some in the bar scene. I think I remember seeing.
There's definitely less alien species so far overall.
Well, less of the more exotic ones. The ones I see that look like actual humans with makeup and prosthetics. So the world feels a little bit empty, in a way, just because of what they've established previously. Once again, it doesn't feel like Star Wars, for better or worse. For better or worse.
Not my Star Wars.
Hashtag not my Star Wars.
In a small way. I mean, in a small way. I mean,
Yeah.
Donovan, are you watching this with your kids?
Yeah, we are.
Grant's watching it. He's enjoying it so far. The next couple episodes he hasn't seen that I have, and they're a little more. I don't know. Some parts are interesting. Some parts are drier. So I know that myself. I don't really care for the politically part of it as much as like the.
So that's 90% of the show you don't care for.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. It's like half of it because like Andor doesn't really deal with the politically stuff right now. He's more of the action side. So that's really what I'm there for is the action side.
So at episode 5, I only have real memory of 2 real action sequences.
Yeah. There's not a lot.
One when they're on, right.
Mhm.
One when they're on the home planet where basically the story essentially starts, and the other with the heist right now, and both are incredible. Those are incredible action pieces. Very, very slow burn up to that though.
Yep.
Yeah.
The first 3 episodes that they said that should have been almost like a feature film in and of itself. You know, it was like an hour and a half of content or whatever it was. I wasn't sure what I was watching in the beginning. It didn't even feel like it was starting to reveal itself until that 3rd episode, which is really the kind of the climax. It was fine, but just a weird feeling show.
Yeah, that is the one thing that I think that I've found that's wrong with Andor. Because Wes and I talked about it. I was like, I can't find anything wrong with this show. Like, I'm usually pretty critical of Star Wars stuff. I'm usually the first one to be like, and just kind of tear something down. Not because I don't love it, because I do love it.
See,
but
I actually don't
it's-
think you like Star Wars.
really. Like, do you see what I'm like?
No, you like the idea of Star Wars. You actually don't like Star Wars. This show is the least like Star Wars, and you like it the most. That's pretty telling.
Well, I like it for the storytelling, the cinematography, the fact that they're telling a good story. Like, I like when Star Wars tells a good story. Like, I loved Rogue One. I loved the original trilogy. There are things that I like out of bits and pieces of Star Wars. I love Rebels. I love Clone Wars. Like, I haven't watched the Tales of the Jedi yet. But like, I mean, we live Star Wars in this house.
So, question: would you
But the
rather
one-
have one side of the spectrum of Book of Boba Fett with the colorful scooters, or Andor? These are like complete
I'd
opposite
rather have
sides.
Andor.
Like, and it's funny you can go from one to the other. They're like the most extreme versions are like back to back series on Disney Plus.
Don't give me the extremes. Give me the center.
That's fine. But I'd rather not have. Book
I
of
cut
Boba
off
Fett.
the extremes.
That was a
and I'll take
train
you to the
wreck.
extremes.
Yeah. No, like
Well,
my
I think
favorite Star
Solo's
Wars
the real
thing is
extreme, but
my favorite Star Wars thing of all is Mandalorian. That's like top of my list. Like even above the original trilogy, like season 1 and most of season 2 of Mandalorian, I think are like top tier Star Wars. But like for this one, like the thing that I'm starting not to like about it is the fact that like you use scenes to develop a character. And the problem is what they're doing is that they're redeveloping the characters with the same scenes. And I don't understand why they keep doing it over and over and over again. Like Cyril. We know Cyril's a character from the first 2 episodes. And the dynamic with him and his mom, we get in that first scene where he's eating cereal with blue milk, you know, talking to his overtly Jewish mother, being super critical of him. And like as an audience, we instantly understand that dynamic between him and his mom. But every episode they reintroduce that dynamic with the same scene of him sitting at the table eating cereal with blue milk and being berated by his overly Jewish mom. Like, and they keep doing that again and again, and they do it with Deborah, they do it with who's the other one? With Kino. Like, they keep doing these scenes where they're establishing the character, and it's like, the character's already been established. We can speed it up again. We can speed it up again. At the end of episode 7, I was like, oh, this is getting to be more of a slow burn than what I'm comfortable with. Like, I was okay with it in the first 6 episodes. By the 7th episode, I'm like, okay, something needs to.
So after the first 6 hours, you know.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question for you guys. You mentioned that there's quite a few. I don't know if quite a few is the word that you used. Familiar characters. Now I'm wondering what I've missed, because I only recognize offhand. I only recognize Andor and Mon Mothma.
Mm-hmm.
What other characters are familiar that they've shown that? I'm wondering. I know for a fact that I've missed details and stuff. I'm not as keen on picking up on stuff recently.
I've only picked up 2 other ones.
Which ones?
Yeah, 2. Well, I don't know. Should we say? Because it's kind of spoilery.
Well,
is it a surprise?
No.
Then I don't care.
Saul Guerrero is in it.
I already kind of knew that. That's not a surprise.
And then there's another character that shows up in Rogue One who's not a main character in the last 2 episodes, that he's just kind of like he's just like a side character.
Okay.
That is among the battalion that does attack as part of the rebel force. But
okay.
I couldn't have told you his name. I just recognized him.
All right.
He's not like a fan favorite.
Major Partagaz? That one?
Maybe.
I've got the list in front of me. I'm like, I want to make sure that I get all the names right.
They haven't said the names enough for most of the characters for me even to be able to identify them by name without their picture, to be honest. So I don't know. I do think it's interesting. They've had like 4 or 5 different actors that have been in Chernobyl that are showing up in this series, which is interesting.
Do you think the characters are intentionally bland? Or maybe I'm just talking about the ones that actually don't matter to begin with. You know, the initial crew.
Which characters are you talking?
The initial crew that the Andor is running with, they're not memorable at all, and maybe by design, because they probably all die at some point.
Oh, like the female that works on the planet, the brunette, and then the mechanic. They're not terribly memorable. No.
That's kind of what I mean.
I really liked Karis, the philosopher of the group, the one that wrote the kid that wrote his memoir, not memoir. What is it called? When they write
Armoire.
Yes, Armoire. No, where like somebody writes a paper before they go and do something bad or something good or whatever. I thought he was interesting. The other ones, they were just kind of
not too interesting. He was gone pretty fast.
Yeah.
But maybe that was by design. I mean, the ones that are memorable are the ones that are going to probably be around the most. You know, Skarsgård's character, Mon Mothma, Andor, some of the Empire. The guy Silas you guys were talking about, is that his name? Silas? The one that the mother?
Cyril,
I meant. So I can't figure out what his role is.
Neither can I.
So, I mean, unless they actually have plans for him to be somebody more substantial, it seems like a waste.
Yeah.
What I was hoping to see in part of larger Star Wars lore is something about like the Grand Admirals, possibly leading into looking at Thrawn. because I think that tier.
That's supposed to be in the Mandalorian and the Ahsoka spinoff stuff, right?
Yeah, I know, but there were supposed to be 5 Grand Admirals, like several.
Okay.
Like this is a top tier group, probably just sub to, I guess, the Emperor. Which has the Emperor even been mentioned in the show, for knowledge?
A couple of times.
Okay, yeah. I don't remember. It's probably just kind of out of the mind. So I think that would be interesting, but.
I've mentioned it before, but like Brandon Sanderson is my favorite author. And he gets very political in his books as well, but he does a brilliant job of like following all of these storylines that as the story goes on, they start to intertwine a little bit more. And like the last 3 chapters of every book are just phenomenal because everything like comes together. And the climax and the payoff are just, I mean, it's almost masterly the way that he writes. It is absolutely amazing. But it is a very, very, very slow burn leading up to all of this. But the problem is you have to understand all of those threads and how they tie together so that you can have that massive payoff in the end. And like I kind of see that in this, in that you have all of these seemingly separate threads and storyline that as the episodes are going together, they're slowly starting to tie into each other. Like Vel being Vel and her connection with other people in the story, and I don't know what Cyril has in connection to everything else, but apparently like we need to really understand his motivation and how his mom impacts that apparently. To understand stuff that's going to happen at the end of it. I'm hoping that all of this slow burn and all of these threads like combining together will make an epic episode 12 and 13. I hope the payoff is worth the investment.
So I have one last question because I know that we're running a little bit long. Cyril and his group, the blue uniform group, who are they supposed to be? Are they supposed to be like cops?
They're contractors. They're they're kind of like just rent-a-cops, basically, for outer rim planets that don't really require the boot of the Empire to be completely on their neck until...
Somehow I wasn't completely clear on that because they didn't seem distinctly Empire.
Yeah, they mentioned a couple times, I think they used the word contractor or independent or something like that.
I think I heard it, but didn't really listen.
Because they were like, the ISB, I think did the most of that. They were saying like, these jackholes screwed up enough, and now we need to put our focus on them, and so now the Empire is going to be in control. Okay. And so they kind of lost their contract, and they fired all of them and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which again references back to my diatribe of contractors, independent contractors from Clerks. If those of you that were listening knew that sounded familiar, that was from Clerks from the early 90s when Kevin Smith laid out the future of entertainment with his prolific writings, with the original connected universe from his movies, I might add. The View Askew-verse was the original MCU, which is now connected canonically, which is great. Anyways, I one thing about Cyril that I think is interesting, he when they keep doing the lighting shifts on his face, kind of like what they did for Ben Solo when he was like on the bridge with his dad, and his light, it's like bluish light on his face, and then the light turns red when he decides to stab Harrison Ford. Like there's been several instances where he's like really well lit, and then he's like goes down the elevator like on the planet that he lives on or whatever, or is it on Coruscant? Have they actually said what planet he lives on?
I don't think they've said.
Let's assume it's on Coruscant, where it's on.
I think so.
On the light, on the surface, on the. That's like all the aristocratic people, they live in the well lit areas, and as he's going down the elevator, there's like a huge shift in lighting on his face to get really, really, really dark, and so it's like, oh, he's like the lower decker in Star Wars. He's the guy, and obviously that has like the way he acts as he went down in like physical level, yeah. as he went down physically, his like emotions and like the way he like presented himself went down as well. It's like anytime he's not down around his mom, he's like more confident, and especially like when he did, I modified the uniform myself and all that stuff. He's, he know, you can tell where he wants to be. He just doesn't have the ability to get there yet, and there's things that happen that make it seem like he's really wanting to. He's going to get into some trouble, and obviously he's going to have another important role to play. He's going to end up being crucial into getting Andor or confronting him or something to add some sort of circle to his arc. But yeah, I agree. He's a little bit slow burny. He's kind of like a little bit weird to. I don't know, he's like a dangling thread that you're like wondering why they keep him around. So it's got to be for something good. He's interesting, if nothing else.
Speaking of something interesting,
our patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks for helping us keep the show on the air with their financial contributions every week. We appreciate them, including our top patrons.
Jordan Ripple.
That's correct.
Derek from Square Splinter.
That's correct.
Clinton. And
Nolan.
Jordan's Nolan.
Yes.
It's like his brother.
We want to thank each and every one of them for their support. We appreciate you very much. What are you guys geeking out
What do you guys...
I'm still geeking out about Henry Cavill being Superman again. I think I mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention it again because I'm still excited. So yeah.
Is it worth losing him as The Witcher, though?
Yeah,
and being
I
replaced with
cannot
Liam
give a crap.
Hemsworth.
I could not give a crap about that show any less than I do now.
I liked the show. I really like Henry Cavill as a character, but I think Liam. I was gonna say Liam Neeson, but Liam Hemsworth will find his place with that. I think it'll be okay. But I'm looking forward to Cavill being a Superman again. Yep.
Coming 2025, 2024.
Sure.
It's okay.
Something.
It'll be here soon though.
I have 3 things on my geeking out list, and I'm wondering if I should do all 3 or just space them out over the next couple of weeks so I don't have to decide about things later on.
Lightning round. Let's go.
Okay, first is a video from Nerd Forge. They did a custom PlayStation 5 kind of covering build miniature thing of like a dwarven fortress, and I thought that was really cool. It came out really good. And every time I see those videos, I'm kind of jealous of their shop shooting space. It makes me want to just completely tear up my entire garage and turn it into a studio. Maybe one of these days. Second thing I'm geeking out about is A Christmas Story 2, starring Peter Billingsworth, the original kid from Christmas Story, who's now our age and has a family of his own, and revisiting that town and modernizing the story. And I hope it's going to be good, but
It
I'll just
didn't
give
look
it
terrible. It looked pretty good.
No, it didn't. It looked like it was. It looked like they were very carefully not trying to push it too far, but still trying to update it with modern sensibilities. So, I like that it was made, and I look forward to watching it. And the last thing I'm geeking out about is a new tool coming out from Xtool, which is a dual infrared laser and blue diode laser in the same housing. It's not quite the same as a fiber laser, but it is a interesting device that might do exactly what I'm looking for some future projects.
Do they run at the same time?
No, I think they're separate modes.
So like one rasters and one vectors and...
Well, let me say this. I don't know. It was just announced today on November 18th is I think when they do their kickoff pre-sale for it. And we'll probably have more information by that time. It's not a very big device. In fact, I think the entire engraving area is only like 4.5 by 4.5. It's small. But that's almost standard for the lower end metal engraving laser types. But the fact that I could possibly, 4.5 by 4.5 is kind of what I do for the tiles anyways that I do. So I'm kind of okay with that. And with the metal things that I want to engrave, I think it'll work pretty well. I'm hoping that it's under $800 as a price point, but it probably won't be, unfortunately. But we'll see.
Probably.
And we'll see if I can talk to the company and get a version of this so I can promote it.
Yeah, you know people, so
Yeah,
right?
that was my wife's reaction when I told her about it today. She goes, "No, just talk to them. You should be able to get one. You've generated enough sales for them," which I kind of have. So
It's cool.
that's what I'm geeking out about.
I'm geeking out about a game which I haven't geeked out about in a while. I would say God of War because my son and I are playing through the first one together in preparation for Ragnarok coming out next week. But on Xbox Live, there is a free game called Windbound that I don't want to say one game's like another, but if you took Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild and mushed them together and made the main character a girl, that's what this game is. Because it's about a girl on an island that gets shipwrecked on an island and has to forage and like craft and all that kind of stuff like you do in Breath of the Wild to get from island to island as she tries to escape this archipelago that she was shipwrecked on, and all of the mystical, like the old temples and things like that. It is a very interesting game that has aspects of Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild that I find kind of fascinating. I've played it through for a couple hours, and it's been pretty enjoyable so far. The music is great. There's not a lot of like bad guys per se, like in a typical Zelda game, since I'm comparing it to that. But just figuring out how to survive and craft and build things, it's pretty interesting, and it's free if you have Xbox Live. So it's worth getting because it's free, if anything else. So that's what I'm geeking out about.
I think so. The time start wrapping things up.
So that would be me. Yeah, because Wes already did his thing. Since we talk about what we're geeking out about here, and we don't go into a lot of detail about the little things that we do on a day-to-day basis, that's because we share it on social media, and you could find out all the things that we're building, or the new lasers that Sean's getting, or all of the fun adventures in buttless scanning that Wes is doing. So if you want to see all of those at any given time, you can follow Sean over at Geek Builders, you can follow Wes at Geek Smithing, and you can follow myself at Once Upon a Workbench.
And we also have a website. You can visit and listen to all of our past episodes right there on the homepage. There's also a shop page with some Making Geeks. There's also a shop page with some Making Geeks themed merchandise for you to check out and possibly pick up and put in your home or on your body if you buy one of the shirts. And we also have a contact page if you want to list anything directly related to the show, such as topics, ideas, or anything else. You could do that on the contact page on makinggeeks.com. And if you'd like to be part of our live show, we record every Thursday evening, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, and 6:30 Pacific. And we do that on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of that fantastic group, it's always good having an active chat going on while we're recording and chiming in and adding to the conversation there. So check that out if you so like. And if you're not able to make it for the live show, then we release our new episodes every Saturday morning on your favorite podcast player of choice. So from all of us to all of you, may the force be with you.
Always.
Which is missing from Andor. Have a good week.